In the news today, the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, is dead. He died on Friday at the age of 81. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, said the deceased died of COVID-19. Announcing Mr. Kyari's death via his verified Twitter handle, Garba Shehu wrote, and I quote, "The presidency regrets to announce the passage of the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari. The deceased had tested positive to the ravaging COVID-19 and had been receiving treatment, but he died on Friday, April 17, 2020, end of quote." Shehu said funeral arrangements for the deceased would be announced soon. The special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, also wrote via his verified Twitter handle, and I quote again, "Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, passes on. May God rest his soul. Amen. Funeral arrangements to be announced soon." End of quote. Kyari had tested positive for the coronavirus in March after a trip to Germany and Egypt. Doctors attending to the late Chief of Staff had obtained his medical records from Wellington Hospital, St. John's Wood, London, which showed that Mr. Kyari had some other ailments that could hamper his rate of recovery from COVID-19. The Wellington Hospital, which is located in North London, is the largest independent hospital in the United Kingdom. Kyari, in a letter on March the 29th, had said he was conveyed to Lagos on an air ambulance to do additional tests and observation, adding that he took the decision based on medical advice as a precautionary measure. He further stated that he had made his personal care arrangements to avoid further burdening the public health system, which is currently facing so much pressure. However, the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, refused to disclose where Kyari was receiving treatment. The Commissioner for Health in Lagos State, Professor Akin Abayomi, later said he did not know Kyari's location, thereby sparking reports that the President's aide was not in any isolation center in Lagos. Responding to a question during a recent presidential task force briefing in Abuja, the Health Minister said Kyari's location was not important, adding that the President's Chief of Staff had a right to privacy. Reacting to the news, the National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Prince Uche Secondus, describing the death as shocking. He said he had prayed for the recovery of the late Chief of Staff, adding that he was shocked to hear about his death. He said, and I quote, "This is shocking. I am sad to hear this bad news. Why now? I wish to console with the President, the members of his cabinet, the family members of Kyari, and all his associates." The death is a reminder to all of us that whatever we are today, it is by the grace of God. He is the one that owns us and the one that can call us home at any time. Once more, I pray for the repose of the soul of the distinguished Nigerian. End of quote. We now move to Abuja, where our correspondent Amadine Uyi gives us a short report on the life and times of Abba Kyari.
Undoubtedly the most powerful of all presidential aides, the late Abba Kyari was a man to reckon with. Shrewd, calculative, serious-minded, but with an amiable smile. Many who had come across the most powerful chief of staff to the president since the advent of the Fourth Republic will admit he was not one to be taken for granted. The late Abba Kyari was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari on August 27, 2015, a few months after the 2015 general elections. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology from the University of Warwick, England. He is also said to possess a Bachelor of Arts degree in Law from the University of Cambridge, England, and was called to the Nigerian bar after attending the Nigerian Law School in 1983. In 1984, he obtained a master's degree in law from the University of Cambridge. He later attended the International Institute for Management Development at Lausanne, Switzerland, and participated in the program for management development at the Harvard Business School in 1992 and 1994. The late Abba Kyari worked with the New Nigeria Development Company, New Africa Holdings, Africa International Bank, United Bank for Africa, Unilever, and Mobile in various capacities over the years. From Borno State, The former banker and ex-journalist has never left anyone in doubt over his huge influence on the presidency. As the chief of staff to the president, Mr. Kyari determined who would have an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari, the memos the president would see, the mails he would read, and those not needed around the president, no matter how highly placed they were. Over the years, he is known to have had rifts with several highly placed political figures, many of them soon to be kicked out of office. Notably among these include the former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Abba, the former Head of Service of the Federation, Winifred Oyoita, the former Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Babatunde Fowler, and the current National Security Advisor, Babagana Mungono, the only one that survived Mr. Kyari's acts. Always at the side of the president, many viewed Abba Kyari as Nigeria's de facto Prime Minister. Always seen with his trademark file in hand within the presidential villa, Kyari is regarded as an astute administrator with an eye for details, pushing President Muhammadu Buhari's reform agenda behind the scenes. One who has never appeared bothered about criticism, Mr. Kyari did a successful job in staying focused to the tasks assigned to him by Mr. President. His influence was further confirmed when on August the 21st, 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari made it resoundingly clear to ministers and appointees of government to go through Abba Kyari in case of any attempt to see him. On March 30th, 2020, via a statement, the late Abba Kyari confirmed to Nigerians he had contracted the coronavirus. Mr. Kyari says he was being moved to Lagos for further tests and observation, and that he had followed protocols. On April the 18th, about 12:37 a.m., via a letter from the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, the announcement came that Mr. Kyari had passed away on April the 17th. It is clear Mr. Kyari will be sorely missed by President Muhammadu Buhari and those operating within the corridors of power. Amadine Uyi, Plus TV Africa.
And joining us live in the studio is legal practitioner and social commentator, Liberus Oshomo. Good morning. Oshoma, rather. Good morning.
Good morning.
And good to have you this morning. How do you react to this news that we are beginning with?
Yeah, it's a big blow. It's a sad one. When the news first broke that he had, contacted coronavirus, a lot of us, were skeptical that he will be able to make it, considering his age. And then, at that age, it's really not about, it's more about your immunity. Mm-hmm. And, there are some illness that comes with age, and that's why you find that when this first started, a lot of people, want to protect the aged and all of that. And so when the news broke also, I felt very bad. So though some people, there'll be mixed feelings,
right,
from some quarters, certain quarters, especially considering the fact that a lot of people see him as a de facto president. Correct. And he's what you would call the Aneni of this government. What Aneni was to Obasanjo, that's what basically he is to Buhari. And like your reporter has said, he's one not to, bother himself with criticism. Mm-hmm. It's somebody who is, hate him or like him, is very focused. You hardly hear from him, but he does what he wants to do, and he really does not care. And so because he's one to be, seen and not heard, hardly heard, so there's a lot of misconception about him and around him. And, people like that, also, they hardly talk. They hardly grant interviews. Mm-hmm. You just hear so many about. But it's a big blow to this government, especially given the fact that the president is who he is. He's the type also that you hardly hear from, and there's been scheming all around, the presidency. And Abba Kyari had been able to hold, that office together and do what he needs to do and when he needed to do them. Considering the fact that you have what I would call a lot of hawks in around the president. And then also, lastly, because these people, we've seen a lot of conflicting interest. President Buhari, who he is, he's somebody who seems not to be in charge. So the man who seemingly, created that opportunity or present that front of, look, yes, the presidency is in charge, is Abba Kyari. And so I doubt if we'll be able to get somebody like him again. It's quite unfortunate, God rest his soul. And then this goes to show that truly COVID-19 is real. For those that have been doubting, that feels, oh, it's all politics, it shows that it's real. He's taking one of the biggest in Nigeria.
I mean, he's the biggest victim now.
Yeah, the de facto president. And then on the flip side, government should see this in memory of Abba Kyari to use this opportunity to revamp the health sector. Because
that brings me to my next question. Like you rightly said, he's the biggest victim in terms of the political and leadership space. Do you think his death will be a wake-up call to the government, especially in tackling COVID-19? Because we've also seen, laxity in different ways.
Yeah, I think it should. It should be a wake-up call. If not for him at all, but the fact that they are not able to fly abroad for medical treatment the way they are used to. You see them, if you were before you, the tweet would probably read, he died in a London hospital or in a Germany hospital where he was receiving treatment for so and so and so. But now, they are not they're even ashamed to announce where he died. That's to tell you how shameless, people in government can be. And so even if not for Abba Kyari's death, they should see this as an opportunity to remember that the time will come if they do not take care of, the institutions and infrastructures around us. It might be difficult for them to jet out to other people's own to take care of themselves. So, and that's why they need to provide those infrastructure. Imagine the president's wife, shouting at the top of her voice that the Aso Rock Clinic do not have Panadol. So, and if we're a serious-minded country, I had expected that, the chief of staff to the president, or if you like, you call him the de facto president, that the clinic should have been top-notch to be able to take care of him. But you saw how there were speculations. Some people said they flew him to Cuba. Some said he was in Lagos. And, so it's shameful that we couldn't even come out to say this is the hospital where he's receiving treatment because of lack of infrastructure to handle the matter. And so, warnings for other people who have aged parents, and the fact that if the de facto president of the country cannot take care of him, then you better keep yours very safe and very far away from COVID-19. We're
going to talk about the culture of secrecy in our leadership. But before we get there, now, are we likely going to see some more lockdown in states? Because as you do know, there are conversations, or rather arguments, whether some states are saying, should they lock down, shouldn't they lock down, especially in the north, and we are seeing the increasing rate of COVID-19. Again, in as much as we're talking about a leader now, should we see that other states are taking this seriously and we go into maybe a national lockdown to be able to hold on and curtail the spread and even stop it moving forward?
I'm not an advocate of this copy and paste, what I call copy and paste mentality or attitude to, tackling the pandemic. Every state has the peculiarity of the crisis in their states. Lagos State, for example, before the national lockdown, had a partial lockdown. And then, take a state like Akwa Ibom, for example. You had about 5 or 6 cases there. That's right. And as at day before yesterday, all of them had been discharged.
Tested negative twice.
Yes. And so for a state like that, you can't also say because other states are locked down, so you need to lock them down also. But
how about interstates?
You can protect, that's why you can protect your borders and have a quarantine method, for people who are coming in, and then you restrict movement around those borders, but you allow, work to go on within your state. If we had taken those steps timeously earlier and to lock our borders, like Tanzania had done. Tanzania didn't lock their border, but they have a system, a 14 days compulsory quarantine for those coming in. But the government had said there's no space for them to quarantine everybody coming in. But then, if we had taken those preemptive steps around our border early enough, we probably would have still been walking around now, and be able to keep COVID-19 out. And so let's allow the governors treat states, according to the peculiarity of the crisis in their state, and not this approach of once the president announced, lockdown of Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun, and then everybody just follows suit because you want to please the government at the center.
But do you think we are taking this whole COVID-19 case seriously? We
are not, actually. We seems to be just, copying. Because another thing we are not doing also is the fact that we just sit down there, we're waiting and hoping that the vaccine will come from somewhere abroad. And then all of us can answer, oh yes, shout uhuru, oh yes, there is a vaccine. What are we doing in terms of, is it forbidden that the vaccine should come from Africa or from Nigeria? What are we doing in terms of studying, research, to also create a vaccine for it? We are not even discussing that at all. And then you hear people, the average man on the street had asked the question, what do you call it? That there's no cure for the coronavirus, but yet, people are being discharged. Yeah. This idea of, I know government would want to be careful so as not to encourage self-medication, because the moment you say, oh, this is the drugs we are using to treat them, people would want to self-medicate. Exactly, treat ourselves at home. But then also there is a way you can also release information and consistent information to ensure that, yes, if you can't manage all the cases, there are some cases also that, experts can manage, at different places, but especially if you have a full-blown crisis, it becomes difficult to take for you to take care of all of them. And then also, coupled with the fact that if you lock down for too long, people might be compelled to go all out because you cannot sustain their means of livelihood, considering that the fact that about 95% of your population are people who work with, small and medium scale enterprises. And then also, when there is no work, salaries won't be paid. And when salaries are not paid, the multiplying effect, will force people out of their houses. So when you do all of this, there's need for you to learn how to manage information that you give to them, release them and ensure that education is consistent, while also looking at your possibility of finding a lasting solution to it.
Now, talking about managing information, and of course, again, with the death of Abba Kyari, many people have said that in this country, there's a lot of culture of secrecy going on. Did you think that our government is transparent enough, especially, yes, regarding COVID-19 leaders? Are we seeing a lot of transparency? Is it a time to be unhealthily secret, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, because when you have failed the people, it is common for you to not say anything to them because there's nothing to say to them. And so you now want to hide under the fact that, oh yes, government activities, these are secret issues. We don't want to unnecessarily release information. We don't want to raise alarm. We don't want to panic the people. So both those things that should be transparent are all kept under the table. Compare the case of Abba Kyari with that of the Prime Minister of the UK. Right. The moment the Prime Minister went, into ICU, everybody knew that the Prime Minister was in ICU. The day he was discharged, you saw the rousing ovation and welcome, the pictures, videos, and this transparency. You can't hide all of this. It also shows, it helped the people to boost their confidence in the system. It shows that, look, the things can be done. If the Prime Minister would go through this, there is no fear. It means that even you can go into ICU and still come out. It's a way of boosting confidence. You remember also the fear of coronavirus and the stigmatization, reduced the moment, some of those patients at the disease center, the infectious disease center, released the video of what was going on there. It helps also build confidence in the people that it's not a death sentence. But for government, now nobody even knows the hospital where he died, where he was receiving treatment, whether I was at home, whether I was in Cuba, whether I was in Lagos.
Facility.
all of that is in secret. And so, when there is absence of information, it gives room for rumors. And when rumors start to thrive, even intellectuals are turned to conveyor belt. And so that's the way we run government here. And it's very, very, very bad. And it doesn't help in building confidence in the people, because rumor will take the place of information. And anybody, you now begin to wonder, which one do you believe? If this one comes out, you say, no, it's fake news. Give me the authentic one. There is no information anywhere. It's the same way we run government. I once read an article of a research student from the UK who is a Nigerian. He came to Nigeria for a research. He had sent his questionnaires to government offices beforehand. The same thing he did with government in Ghana. He said while he immediately got to the minister's office in Ghana, they were already waiting for him. He got to Nigeria, he spent 3 days, he couldn't talk to anybody, because everybody keep buck passing. And that's the way we run government here, and it's very bad. And we're also seeing it now with the death of the chief of staff to the president. We're even lucky that, you know, we were even informed immediately it happened. Or like some situations where you won't hear, then rumors will set in. Remember Kemi Olunloyo had once said that one big person at the villa had died. You know, some persons also, but some mischievous Nigerians who might even say that, oh, the man had died before now, that, you know, they are just releasing information in the absence of information.
Yeah, I mean, because we are not purveyors of fake news here at Plus TV Africa, we will stick to
I'm saying
the
that,
information we have.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that, yes, we are happy that the information came out, because I believe the man just died. I wouldn't have believed that of Kemi Olunloyo. But I'm saying that in the absence of information,
we give room to
news like that, we give room to news like that, and then some people definitely will believe, you know, what do you call it, people who, mischievous people, would, you know, go to town with, you know, because of the absence of trust. Information breeds trust.
Right. Okay, let's talk about the gaps that, you know, COVID-19 has shown in our leadership system. While Abba Kyari tested positive, we heard the speculation of being moved to Lagos, and you know, at some point he said, well, he wants to go into a private facility because he doesn't want to burden the government. We know the amount of money that has been budgeted into the health sector. What is happening such that we are not even able to rise up to the situation and say, you know what, even if you're in Abuja or you're in Kotongora, wherever you are, there will be a facility, health facility, that will be able to cater for any form of illness? You
see, there's what we call political correctness.
Which is?
Wanting to go into a private facility is political correctness. If the public facilities were up to date, were top-notch, there was no need for the de facto president to say that, you know, he wants to go, the late Abba Kyari to say he wants to go into a private facility because he doesn't want to bother the government. What actually happens is, oh, I don't have faith in the public health institution, so I would rather want a situation where I would, you know, be managed in a private facility, you know, by, you know, private people who I trust, who I can relate with. And to add to that, the secretary to the government of the federation also now said that he didn't know that the state of our healthcare system was this bad. And so that shows that even the late Abba Kyari does not have faith in the healthcare system. And if those who are saddled with the responsibility of managing this system, to manage the government, does not have faith in the institutions of government, not is it you and I that do not even have anything. You know, what it means is that what we have is a situation where, okay, if you say you do not have faith in this system, you know, you're going to raise alarm. You're going to create sentiment. So just say, I don't want to bother the government. Whether you bother the government or not, even if you're in a private institution, the government being, you know, a top-ranking officer, the government will ensure that everybody attending to you is top-notch. You're properly taken care of, because it's almost as if the president is in that situation. You know, so that's what has happened. And so that also brings me to the fact that public institutions, I took time to compare photographs of our national hospitals with the National Office of the EFCC, the ICPC, and you will cry. So we build these massive structures for, institutions, anti-corruption institutions. We build massive structures for national hotels, but we forget and neglect that, health is wealth. And because we always have opportunity to fly abroad, even our president is so shameful that our presidents will, dash abroad for even the smallest of ailments. But we are happy and lucky that it is not Mr. President. Do you know the crisis would have been now if that had happened? Because we know what happened with Umaru Yar'Adua, how we couldn't treat our president here. One would have expected that would sound or, be a learning curve for any other incoming president. Goodluck Jonathan came and didn't do anything about the health sector. President Buhari came, and even though he also had his own health crisis, because he could go abroad, he didn't also neglect, even when his wife was shouting. Now, that same crisis has taken one of his. One would have expected that it would sound as a lesson. When all of this is over, I tell you, they will not care because we've seen part 1. So part B will not be different from part 1, part A. So I would expect, I'm not looking at this crop of leaders for any hope at all. So let this, but that won't stop us from still advising that let this be an opportunity to change orientation in government and the way we run government. Because if the facilities were available, the public institutions would have been better managed than even the private one. I remember growing up, if you attend, private schools, private primary schools or secondary schools, nobody reckons with you because the public schools were top-notch. The public hospitals were top-notch.
Right.
But when we started destroying the public ones, private ones, sprang up, and there was opportunity for better private hospitals. That's why they would rather, since they can't go abroad, they would rather, look towards the private hospitals. I think that's why he made that statement. But let them also remember, including some of them who are in public hospitals and using public funds to further their own private hospitals. Let them also remember that in times of war and crisis, crisis does not know wealth, it does not know rich, it does not know poor, it does not know age. Once it comes, anybody can be affected, including you and I. So when given such opportunity, irrespective of our position, let us, stand out and ask ourselves, what would we want to be remembered for? If at the end of the day there is a crisis, there's a pandemic, will I be confident enough to go to that health institution that I am managing? Will I be confident enough to send my children to schools in the secondary school that I'm superintending? A situation you have a commissioner for education who does not have faith in the education system in the state. That's basically what has just happened now.
All right, before I let you go, what lessons do you think that this is bringing to us as a people, especially in the face of the crisis of COVID-19? Because we are not done with COVID-19 as far as we have not even started. Right, so what lessons are there for us, even as an ordinary Nigerian or the person who's in leadership?
Twofold. I will look at it first and foremost, like from our private life, and then look at it from the political life. Because as I speak now, people will already be jostling for Abba Kyari's position. I can tell you that for sure. The man had not even been laid to rest. People will be jostling for his position. People will be fighting. People will be making calls.
Because there's a political vacancy.
There's a political vacancy. What lessons for us should be that the moment you leave, it's 2 minutes silence. The moment, and your position, others will take. So your health is very, very important. Your environment is very important. When government also should understand, whether you're a governor today, whether you're a president, you should also understand that, health is no respecter of persons. It's no respecter of person. If you fail to put the right structures in place, when the whirlwind of ill health comes, it might just sweep you. And so for us as a people, we should also know that if we do not hold our government accountable, when the time comes, all of us will be helpless, because it will be so sad. It is different from you to say, oh, some people will tell you, yes, I can take Agbo, but those your aged parents at home, who you still love, who you still want to see around for the next 10 years, can Agbo and Dogoyaro treat them because of other underlying factors? So the time to begin to hold our government accountable, be you APC, be you PDP, is now, because it has no political face. Because if you begin to create excuses for government, and when the crisis comes, the crisis will not hold on to those excuses. Right. It might just sweep one of yours, and that time might be too late.
Thank you so very much, Liberals Oshoma.
My pleasure.
And now, still on the death of Abba Kyari, we take a look at his educational background.